Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with David Helman of DallasCowboys.com.
Here is Pollard all the way in for 6.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, we have talked for 2 hours, 20 minutes, pretty much exclusively on college football for a lot of reasons that are going on in the landscape of the game itself. We'll take a break here with the Cowboys and Oxnard about to be in Canton, Ohio, Pittsburgh on Thursday. David Helman, DallasCowboys.com. So, David, the Dak Prescott not throwing, that was something that I thought would probably extend even past their first preseason game. But is this a little bit longer than even perhaps you thought, that they're just kind of sitting back and he's not throwing?
So, not really, but it kind of goes backward. And it's funny how it worked out, because what surprised me, back when this first happened, Mike McCarthy said, it'll probably be 2 or 3 days. And after, he specifically was like, 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 practices, he'll be back out there, which, it's very surprising anytime you hear a coach give a definitive timetable on an injury like that. And so I think maybe Mike McCarthy learned a lesson on that, is just kind of try to be as vague as possible when you're talking about things like that. Because, it makes sense that you want to give it as much time as possible. And Dak probably wasn't going to play in this preseason game anyway, so the more time the better. So I don't think I'm not surprised that it's been a week and he's still not throwing. I think I was mainly surprised that they originally said it would be less, if that makes sense.
How much weight will they put on the quarterback's performances in the Hall of Fame game on Thursday, given that this was the plan anyway, that Dak wasn't going to play, but insofar as making a backup quarterback decision that might be off the roster?
This is a huge opportunity for all of them, but really Ben DiNucci strikes me. The guy, what a ridiculous circumstance he got thrown into last year, where he's playing against the Philadelphia Eagles in his first, real snaps of his career after not, in training camp, third string's only getting 2 to 4 reps per practice. So, it was a terrible circumstance for him. So I think a chance to play in a game environment with, fellow backups and not necessarily the all-pro roster, I think this is going to be our best chance to evaluate a guy like that we've had since he got on the team. So, until something crazy happens, I assume Garrett Gilbert's the backup quarterback on this team. I think it would have to be somebody coming from off the roster to unseat him, in my opinion. But when you're talking about, whether or not a guy like Ben DiNucci is worth keeping around, I think these preseason games are going to go a long way, because it's probably not fair to evaluate him against the Eagles on Sunday Night Football, but it's very fair to see how he does in the preseason game.
So, David, I saw you address at least one fan showing some concerns over Trayvon Diggs, and you pointed out, well, he's going up against CeeDee Lamb, and he's at a pretty good camp. What have you seen from Diggs? And I guess CeeDee Lamb has just been showing that wow factor that so many people expect from him.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about training camp is, the minute somebody starts to get excited about one player, it comes at the expense of somebody else. CeeDee Lamb has to make these crazy catches on somebody's expense. And it's been Trayvon Diggs a lot of that time. But I do, I said it on Twitter. I think he's had a very solid camp. Like, he gets his hands on the football. He's good and confident in coverage. He's made plenty of plays. I think he's got 3 or 4 interceptions for, the 2 weeks that we've been out here. So, 3 or 4 picks in 8 practices ain't bad at all. It just so happens he's got to go against CeeDee Lamb every day, and you're not going to win all of those.
So there's a bunch of people in camp, and they're going to take a lot of people to Canton. Who's not going to play, you think, based on Tyron Smith, Dak, Zeke? They don't need to, but, is it going to be like maybe a who's who that's not playing on Thursday?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, too, because of COVID. Do you want to subject people to all of the rigors of traveling and the risks that go with it if they aren't going to play? I do think, at some point, guys, you need enough bodies to get through a game. So like, not every single starter is going to get to rest, but yeah, your Tyron Smith. I mean, Dak's definitely not going to play. I think it's safe to say Zeke's probably not going to play. Yeah, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, those guys I think probably sit out. Maybe long tenured guys on the defense don't need to play in this game. Fortunately for the Cowboys, there aren't very many of those. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say 5 or 6 of the biggest names probably won't be playing, but I think you'll still get to see a decent amount of the starters do some work.
What's been your assessment of the safeties thus far in camp?
Incredibly impressed with, I say this all the time, DeMonte Casey. I mean, the fact that he's even full go is so impressive to me just because of the injury he's coming off of. I mean, Achilles injuries are terrible for anybody, let alone a guy who has to backpedal all the time. So not only is he full go, but he looks very confident in this defense, and that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody since he played with Dan Quinn his entire Atlanta career. He's making plays on the football, and I've done this long enough to know that doesn't always translate to the regular season. I'm not telling anybody that he's going to be a star, but he looks really confident out here. He looks like he knows what he's doing, and he breaks on the ball and makes plays on the football, which is more than I can say about most of the safeties they've had here over the last few years. All
right. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. When are you going? You're going to Canton, obviously, right?
I am actually not.
Oh.
Part of our brave new world with COVID protocols and all that. I'm not making this trip, but I do expect to be at the rest of the preseason games after this one.
All right. Well,
so you just have to suffer through.
Yeah. You just get to hang in California.
I know. Yeah. I mean, how am I going to live having 3 free days in Southern California? I don't know. I guess I'll have to get by somehow.
God, we hate you right now.
My dream.
We absolutely
3 free days in Southern California.
2 or 3 more days in the rudder room until about 1:00 in the morning with all the other degenerates. All right, thanks for your time. That's the great David Helman, DallasCowboys.com, with us on SicEm365 Radio. You guys wish you were out there?
Every year. I mean, it's just part of it. Here's the other thing that people don't understand. It's the weather and it's the atmosphere, and especially now with the way that they're doing practice, it's perfect for us. Like, that was why, like, one of the things that made me mad is practice is at 11:00 Pacific. We could be done with everything once the show's over. For the first time ever.
Yeah, because we would be done at 4 and then still go watch another practice and then interviews.
Yeah. So right. It's done. And so you can have your time, and it's just nice. It's also good for us in team building. Yeah. It's a good team building thing for us every year that we haven't gotten to do for a couple years. No,
it's a chance to decompress before the real season begins.
Well, team build.
There's not a lot of free time because like a Saturday, there was for you in golf, but Paul and I would sit at the practice facility for 10 hours waiting for, a media session, and I would have killed for a 1 free day in Southern Cal, much less 3. So I'm sure he will have a very fun time. I know I would be going crazy, driving around everywhere.
And the last time that I was there, I did get one because that's how the practice schedule fell. There's just one day where nothing going on. I went there in the morning. I interviewed Kellen Moore, and then I went, hung out.
All right, when we come back, John McClain, Houston